Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I will get started soon. Let me just get my screen together. Um, Good evening, everyone. My name is Claudia Aly, and I am a Parent Outreach Coordinator with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, also known as ISAC. This is another session for parents, and this is the first session for this year. Can you believe the first month of the year is gone already? And I just realized I'm still wearing Christmas colors. But I'm here today to provide updates, tips, and insights for completing the FAFSA. But before I get started, I want to go over some housekeeping items. So this session will be saved and shared on our YouTube page. So as a note, if you view this session after the live recording, um, there may be additional updates not included in the session, so please visit the studentaid.gov website for more information. For questions you may have today, you can use the Q&A option at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and someone from the agency will be helping me answer those questions. If your question is not answered today or you come up with additional questions later, please use the ISAC College Q&A service. This is a free resource for you and your student where you can get answers to your questions via text message. This is a free service, and to register, you can text us your first and last name to 847-243-6470, and I will make sure to share that number in the chat. For new families who are joining today or who will be watching the recording, as I mentioned, I am a parent outreach coordinator, and my job is to work with parents throughout the state, and I can schedule virtual or in-person meetings with parents as needed. Like in previous sessions, I would like to start by talking about ISAC and our mission. So the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, or ISAC for short, is a college access and financial aid agency here in the state that administers programs such as grants and scholarships to help pay for college. And then our mission is to provide Illinois students with information and assistance to help make education beyond high school accessible and affordable. So to begin with the session, like I mentioned at the beginning today, I will be talking about some tips and insights for completing the FAFSA. Most of you know high school senior and college students need to complete the financial aid application, whether it is the free application for federal student aid or FAFSA, or the alternative application for Illinois financial aid, to see if they're eligible for financial aid. For the purposes of today's session, I will continue talking about the FAFSA because, as we all know, there were changes in the application, and students and families are getting challenged with these changes in the application, especially for those of mixed status families where one or both parents don't have a social security number. But also other students and families are experiencing some other issues like glitching, but federal student aid is working to fix these issues. So first, I want to give you some background information about what happens once the FAFSA is submitted. So when a student submits the FAFSA, Federal Student Aid or FSA process the information shared on the application, and then they will provide FAFSA eligibility to the schools that the student included on the application. So once the schools receive your child's FAFSA information, they will provide personalized aid information known as a financial aid offer, letting your student know the type of financial aid they are offering to them. So then you and your student will evaluate these offers to find the best option for your student. Based on the financial package and other important factors, your student can make an informed decision as to which is the best college option for them. I know money or how to pay for college is a big factor when deciding what school to choose, but so when the student receives this financial aid offer, as questions in regards to the money the student is receiving. Clarify like any doubts before your student makes the final decision. This is a very important steps when looking into colleges. So starting with the updates for the 2024-25 FAFSA, originally when the application became available at the beginning of the year, FSA sent a notification that once the FAFSA was submitted, the processing time would begin at the end of January, but now the date has moved to mid-March. And I will repeat, the processing time will begin at the first weeks of March. This means that FSA will be sharing FAFSA eligibility with the schools until then, and students will not be receiving information from the schools listed on the FAFSA until probably end of March. One of the other key points I want to mention is that once the student submits the FAFSA, they are unable to make changes or corrections until mid-March as well. So if your student is considering a school at all, I would suggest to list it on the FAFSA, even if the student is not 100% sure about it, since adding a school is considered a correction, and it would only further extend the process to add a school later. FSA will send your student an email with when the FAFSA information has been sent to the selected schools and when your student can access their FAFSA submission summary. The FAFSA submission summary will provide your official student aid index calculation and the federal Pell Grant eligibility. During the process of applying for financial aid, it is very important to learn financial aid terminology. And so as a reference, the SAI reflects an amount that the student can contribute or is expected to contribute to their education based on the information that was submitted on the FAFSA. And this helps the financial aid office determine how much federal student aid your student would receive. And now with the various updates and changes to the 2024-25 FAFSA, I know there is a big concern among students and families because they depend a lot on the financial aid aspect to start or to choose a college. And what happens, when the school your child is applying to has a priority deadline to submit the FAFSA. I know a lot of families I have worked with are concerned about college deadlines, right? Just to give you a little bit of context, colleges have their own deadline for the FAFSA to be submitted to potentially receive the most financial aid from the college if they're eligible. This has nothing to do with financial aid from federal and state programs. That doesn't mean that a student can no longer submit a FAFSA form. The student can still file the FAFSA and receive federal and state financial aid, regardless of the priority deadline being passed. However, the good news is that due to the challenges we are, experiencing with the FAFSA application, many colleges and universities have already moved their deadline to provide students with more time, especially because, like I mentioned, the FAFSA information will begin to be shared with schools until mid-March. So even those applications that were submitted at the beginning of the year have not been processed yet. So for those who have not completed a FAFSA, don't worry, we still have enough time to complete it. If the school or the schools your child is applying to have a specific deadline for the FAFSA to be submitted, I would suggest to get in contact with the school, and you may also want to ask about the school's definition of an application deadline. Sorry. For example, if the deadline could be the date your FAFSA form is processed or the date the school receives your processed FAFSA data, right? So make sure you have a clear understanding when it comes to deadlines. The same thing applies to private scholarships. Students should contact them directly and explain their situation. I'm sure everyone knows what's happening with the FAFSA, and chances are that they have moved the deadline as well. So it is important to just keep an eye on either the institution or the private scholarship websites for deadline updates or changes. Also, families have asked, what is the state's or ISAC's priority deadline? There are a number of students who are told that the deadline to complete the FAFSA to be considered for the MAP grant has passed, but this is incorrect. As a result of the late release of the FAFSA and the subsequent issues or glitches with the application, the priority date for returning MAP recipients has been moved from February 1st to April 1st. And this deadline only applies to college students. For example, if your student received the MAP grant in the 2023-24 academic year and plan to attend college in 2024-25, the student would have to file the FAFSA by April 1st. As you can see, we still have more than a month to complete the FAFSA, and hopefully by then the issues have been resolved. But this is only for priority access of funds. So our returning applicants' failure to complete the FAFSA by the announced priority date does not disqualify any applicant from receiving, a grant if sufficient funding is available. ISAC is required to set a priority date, but that date is not a deadline date for the FAFSA to be completed. Now, if for any reasons the college or a scholarship your student is applying to insist on, having a deadline to submit the FAFSA, I want to let everyone know the paper FAFSA is also available. And it is up to the student and the family to complete it. We provide support as far as completing the form, but the decision of completing the online versus the paper version of the FAFSA is ultimately yours. But just know that that option is also available. Again, for those who have not started the process of completing the FAFSA, I recommend you to do it as soon as possible. To access the FAFSA, the student and the parent, one of the parents, if both parents are married and filing taxes jointly, are required to create an FSA ID. Again, an FSA ID is just an account that will allow the student and families or the contributors, as this is a new term for this application. So they will give them access to the FAFSA form and to sign the form electronically. It is super important for you to know that this FSA ID should be created at least 3 days prior to starting the FAFSA. Otherwise, I have heard glitching in the system, or if the FSA ID is done the same day the FAFSA is started, you might have to enter your tax information manually. So one of the new things with the FAFSA for this year is that once the parent and the student provide consent for the IRS to transfer the information directly to the FAFSA form, nobody has to enter tax information manually. So if the FSA ID is not created prior, a couple of days prior to starting the FAFSA, then you might have to enter the information manually. This is because your information has to be verified with Social Security Administration. That's why it is suggested to do it at least 3 days prior. So if you're planning to attend a workshop at a school or at a community resource, make sure you had already created an FSA ID to be able to start and finish the application. I have been assisting during FAFSA completion workshops, and I have talked to parents who have taken the day off from work, and this is one of the reasons they cannot complete their student's application, and they either get stuck in the process of creating their FSA ID, or they take longer to complete the application because they have to manually enter their tax information. Especially for those families without a social security number, they are having a very difficult time when creating their FSA ID, and they don't know these issues until they show up to these workshops. Some of these families are unable to create their FSA ID because they're unable to verify their identity, right? In this case, we cannot proceed or start the FAFSA application. The student can complete their section, but the parents would have to wait until the verification is done, and that might take a few days to get completed. To help you understand, the process of creating an FSA ID, it includes 7 steps. So I'm just going to, go over, talk about what are those 7 steps, just so you have an idea. And if you get stuck, at least know what was the step that you couldn't continue. So the first step is like entering your personal information. Then the second step is choosing your username and password, sharing your contact information. Step 4 is your communication preferences. Number 5 is choose your challenge questions and answers that will help you in retrieving your username and password in case you forgot them. Step 6 is confirm and verify the information you enter. And then step 7 is about the 2-step verification process. This is a way to protect your account. When you log in, FSA will send a verification code to your email or phone or both to make sure it is you accessing your account. Again, these are the 7 steps to create an FSA ID. And up to here, it is the same process for everyone. However, after the 2-step verification step, a parent without a social security number will be prompted to answer knowledge-based verification questions, and these are questions that are used to verify, your identity. So between 1 and 4 questions will be generated, and all of the questions must be answered correctly to be able to proceed. If one of the questions is not answered correctly, your identity cannot be verified, and an additional, screen will appear with instructions to call a 1-800 number to verify your identity. If you are in this situation where you need to verify your identity, you can give it a try. You can call that number, but also you can use the email function instead. There is that option to be used, and I will be sharing that as well in the Q&A. For the purposes of the purposes of the call, the purpose of the call or the email is to obtain a case number to provide documentation to verify your identity. So once the parent obtains a case number, they can send an attestation form and valid forms of ID via email. Specific instructions are included on the attestation form as far as what is considered a valid form of ID and where to be sent. Once you send the attestation form and valid forms of ID, the process to verify your identity will take a couple of days or a few days, even though it says that it can take 1 to 3 business days. Is taking more than that. Based on what I have heard from families, it's taking from 7 to 15, 20 days. So it all depends, how much they have piled up. We have heard other issues with the FAFSA application, and unfortunately, there is no current solution to it, but, just wait. Like I mentioned, the Department of Ed is working to fix these issues, and the expected time is, the end of this month. And hopefully by mid-March, the schools have the information that is needed to provide to students and families. If your student is having issues with submitting the FAFSA, I would suggest to visit the 2024-25 issue alerts, where you'll find a list of different issues other students and families have experienced, and the workaround, solution to just to be able to submit the FAFSA. I will also share that information on the chat. But again, if the school that your child is applying to or a scholarship has a deadline, the student can contact the institution, or has the option to complete the paper FAFSA. It's up to the student and you to decide what to do in that case. We're here to provide support, but you will be, deciding what's the best option for your situation. If this is the first time your child is applying for financial aid and you don't know if you're eligible for financial aid, you can use the Federal Student Aid Estimator that is found in the studentaid.gov website to find out how much federal student aid your student may be eligible. You can also use the MAP estimator to find, that is found in the ISAC student portal, to have an idea of your eligibility for the MAP grant, which, this is the state funds. To finish this session, I want to add and let you know that this is not just happening here in Illinois. This is happening in other states as well. A lot of families are experiencing the same or similar issues as we are experiencing. This is not your fault. You haven't done anything wrong. Remember that the processing time for the FAFSA application will begin mid-March, so you're not behind. Be patient and get informed. Try to get updates as much as possible. And as an advised, students can start or continue searching for scholarships while waiting for the FAFSA. Remember that FAFSA eligibility is just a portion of the financial aid a student can receive. There are different types of scholarships out there. With that, I will go ahead and share some of the resources I mentioned in the chat, and I will see if there is any questions that need to be answered. Okay, so I do not see questions that need to be answered. So no option to review the application online. So there is no option because the FAFSA hasn't been processed yet. So they will start getting processed at the mid-March. So beginning of March, that's when the applications that were submitted will start getting processed. And as it was answer in the chat, so there, if the student is to do any corrections or add a school, they are not going to be able to do so until the schools are, until the FAFSA gets processed. I am going to share some of the resources in the chat. So for those who have not started or created an FSA ID, I share the link. If you need to get in contact with FSA via email, this is the contact information. And if you want to have an idea of your federal student aid eligibility, you can use the estimator. And to continue the search for private scholarships, you can visit this site, create an account, and start your search. I'm checking and see if there is another question. So for that question about a college or university using the CSS profile to determine the map has not been so the deadline to file a FAFSA to see if they're eligible for the map is until April 1st. So I don't think it has been considered yet, but you need to check with them directly. Okay, and the last resource I'm sharing is the College Q&A. ISAC College Q&A is a free service where students and parents can get their questions answered via text message. To register, you just have to send us your first and last name to that number listed. It's 847-243-6470. And then in addition to get, answers, we often send reminders or important information for the students and families to know. Okay. Okay, I don't think I see any other questions. I saw one question. Can I share the unofficial SAI code to schools generated by FAFSA estimator tool? Just know that that's unofficial. That information is just for you to have an idea what your SAI would be. I don't think that can be used for that purpose. So you would have to wait until the actual official SAI is sent to you or the student. And like I said, that will be happening probably, mid to late March. Okay. This is the end of our half an hour mark. Thank you so much for joining me in today's session. Thursday, I will be having the Spanish version for this session. If you know anyone who needs information, let them know that I will be having the Spanish version on Thursday at 6:30. And thank you so much for joining me this evening. Have a good rest of your day.